Hello traders, we have something really special for you today. After reviewing probably more than 1,000 journals of you guys, for you guys, we have identified common struggles and problems that a lot of retail traders have when it comes to reaching profitability. That is why we teamed up with Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street coach, mental coach to some of the best traders the market has ever seen, and we will talk about these issues and how to solve them, of course. We have recorded 9 videos in total, each of them 10 to 20 minutes in length, and you will get massive value from these videos. Free of charge, brought to you by Edgewonk and Kim. Anyway, in the first video we are going to talk about fear and greed, how those emotions make you sabotage yourself, and how to deal with them. If, like most traders, you struggle with taking subpar trades, exiting too early, entering too early, mismanaging your trade, under-risking, over-risking, any of those, then the next 9 videos will be extremely beneficial to you. So enjoy. Alright, Kim, let's jump right into it. Fear and greed and how they make us deviate from our trade plans is the topic of this episode. And a short note from me about this. What I have always realized about myself is that fear and greed, they're polar opposites, and the more greed I have about a trade, the more fear I have at the same time about a trade. Would you agree with that?
I think I would agree with it. And I think every individual, though, is going to have their own relationship to those two different emotions. I think greed often is fear of not having enough. So I am not so sure that fear and greed are necessarily two separate emotions. I think they are likely the same, which is when you feel greedy and you dig underneath it more feeling, you will likely find a feeling of that you don't have enough right now. You feel like you need more to be what? To be safe, right? So greed, I don't love to use that word because I feel when we put greed as a word for ourselves, we've judged ourselves. And I like to advocate traders do their best to observe themselves neutrally without labels. Fear is a feeling as opposed to a judgment, whereas greed is a label that one might put on oneself. But if you go under it, what you'll discover is it's a feeling of not feeling safe, which usually is a feeling also called fear.
Okay, that makes sense. So when you talk about not feeling safe, I think if we look at two different if we look at two different traders, one, for example, has $1 million in the bank account and his monthly living expenses are below 5,000 US. So he would be relatively safe. But I'm pretty sure even that person can still experience a lot of fear. And then we have the other trader who, for example, needs to live from hand to mouth, yeah, where he tries to pay his bills at the end of the month, and he's trying to make it in trading. Now
Yeah.
that person has justified fear. I would say. So how would you work with those two traders, or yeah, how would you solve their fear issues?
It's a great question. And there's just about 6 different rabbit holes I want to go down in reference to all of what you just said. But I'll try to answer your question first and then go down the rabbit holes accordingly. I have been amazed at how, because I have worked with some very successful traders and some very successful, financially successful people, very wealthy people, you would be surprised that the fear of scarcity often resides, even for those who you would think on paper or compared to your bank account would never be afraid of not having enough. And yet, some, not all, will consistently feel like they don't have enough. There was a study done years back, I won't be able to reference it accurately in this moment, that did a question of, I think it was 50 millionaires in the West Coast, California area to say, do you feel like you have enough? And all of them said no. So the article was about how even those that we might perceive, if we're not a millionaire, would feel like they have enough. That is not the experience of those that are millionaires, or at least that group that they reached out to. So if I had a trader that came to me who had $1 million and lived very frugally, I would first have them investigate what is their relationship to money. Because whether they are a millionaire or they are not as rich as that or wealthy as that or financially secure as that, it's relative to their belief system. If that's a person who came from a billionaire family and is living, let's say, on an inheritance, his lifestyle dramatically changed if he was once a billionaire to a millionaire. One of the techniques I love to use, I learned from T. Harv Eker in his book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And what he said is that based on our childhood, based on our parents' upbringing, each of us has a money set point, like a thermostat in a house. We have an internal thermostat. And if that thermostat, if we grew up, let's say, in a blue collar, middle class, working class backgrounds, or watched our parents grow up that way, we're going to have a different temperature set point of comfort with money. There are people who live hand to mouth, like deep poverty in third world countries. And I've talked to people who've interacted with them, and they're like, they don't even have the concept of scarcity because it's a community that takes care of each other. And yet we have millionaires or billionaires even who I've watched who have nothing but scarcity. So first, I would say to any trader listening, either place you're coming from, you have a relationship with money. And this is also important, I think, for traders who find themselves sabotaging themselves unexpectedly. Again, why do lottery winners, why do sports and rock stars who make all this money 10, 20 years later find themselves bankrupt? It's the same thing. If you have a set point of 70 degrees of comfort, let's say with money, if you're suddenly at 80 or 50, you have so much more than you ever thought was possible, you're probably going to have a whole bunch of discomfort that you might not be accepted by your friends, that maybe you can't trust them anymore. Maybe they're jealous of you. You could have all those things triggered and suddenly find you have sabotaged your own account to feel internally, of course, unconsciously safer. Remember, it's all about safety for individuals. And like I said, that trader who's scraping pie, that might make him feel safer scraping pie. It also could be that he has a better relationship to money than the person with $1 million. Individually, I would say reflect on what were the money beliefs you grew up with? How did your parents talk about money? What are the things you say about money now? There are some who, Olivia Mellon has a great book called Money Harmony, and she talks often about our relationship to money can be one of hoarding. Our relationship to money could be spiritual, where, you know what, the really good people of the world, they don't get their hands dirty with the evil dollar. Like there's all these secret beliefs where we think, oh, and she calls that a money monk. And I've seen money monkness in a lot of traders where if you make fun of a rich person, that is an indication of your opinion of wealth, of opinion of money. And it could be invisibly sabotaging your own financial success.
Hmm. Makes a lot of sense to me. When I think about rich people, I used to think, because from where I come in Germany, firstly, is rich people, they're almost always looked at with a sense of jealousy, and also something can't be right about that person. They must have some bodies in the basement. And
Exactly. And
yes.
so, how could that not subconsciously, unconsciously make you feel like that if you started to have that much money? First of all, people around you might think you have some bodies in the basement. Also, you might think, well, I'm not a good person anymore. Everybody wants to be a good person except for sociopaths. So you've got to realize that those invisible beliefs about people outside of you indicates the opinion you have then of you when you start getting it. There's another great book, which is really just about the transition from it's a journalist who wanted to be a journalist, but his whole family were blue collar construction, bricklayer type of, parents, grandparents, the whole family, all blue collar workers, made fun of this guy because who did he think he was that he wanted to be a white collar, journalist, smarty pants? And he avoided doing the journalism for years because they constantly made him feel like what's wrong is manual labor beneath you, like as if he
Mm.
was judging their lifestyle choices. But he
Mhm.
could see it held him back. I've seen a lot of traders, even though you and I both know there's a lot of work involved in becoming a successful trader, it can also be perceived as pushing buttons. There's not a lot of back breaking, except if you sit in your chair 17 hours a day, work involved. And so some traders have it's come up in their coaching. Well, I'm not really working that hard. And I'm like, really? You've been in front of your screens how many days? Well, that's not that hard compared to my grandfather who dug mines, right? But again, it's a judgment that our culture, right? Your German culture, certain cultures talk about thrift, right? Which could also be called cheap. There's all different cultural beliefs about money, but I would say each individual, you could take the money harmony assessment, which is in Olivia Mellon's book, but you can also start to pay attention to the phrases you have, not only about rich people, but about poor people too. Well, why don't they just get a job? Do you give money to a person who's asking for it on the street corner? Or do you say they're just going to use it for drink? Like, look at all of these opinions you have about rich and poor and see if in underneath those things you find out about yourself. Another book I have to mention, which I love, No Worries by Jared Dillian. And he says, he calls it a cheap F, a person who's cheap as that, and a person who spends, like, I'll buy everybody a drink tonight. He said those two actions are exactly two sides of the same coin. Somebody who's completely, like I'm gonna look like the big guy with the fancy car, and look at me, and the person who's hoarding. He's like two sides of the same behavior. So get curious. Anybody listening, what is your money type? What did you come from? What are your beliefs? And just one by one, start to peel them back and ask yourself, could that be affecting the glass ceiling over my head in my trading? Or could it be holding me back from taking appropriate risk when the time comes to take it?
Mhm. Mhm. Fantastic. Also, when it comes to fear and greed, I think it's not only tied to money, it can also be tied to, I don't know, love by your parents, or appreciation by your peers. I think I think that's a different type of fear. How would you, or greed, how would you work with that? If yeah.
So I'm a huge student of a language called nonviolent communication. This was created by Marshall Rosenberg, who speaks to a collection of needs that are always driving us. And if any trader listening wants a copy of that needs list, I'm happy to send to them free of charge. What I will ask traders to do is first track, let's say at the end of a trading day, how in the midst of the day did they feel, like a spot check, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 10 o'clock in the morning. How do you feel in this moment? Maybe one feels excited. What need got met prior to that? Maybe someone feels demoralized or sad. What need didn't get met? The reason I take traders through that exercise is over time, what you'll discover is that there are a handful of non-negotiable needs. And if you begin to understand what your basic needs are, then you have a better chance at, first of all, getting them met. And second of all, not trying to have the market meet that need. Often what I discover is that a trader has a need for, I'll just say some off the top of my head, respect, a need to belong, a need to be seen, a need to be heard, a need to be part of a community, a need to feel effective, a need to be safe. Those are human needs. Everybody has them. But what I do see often is that traders often don't have them conscious, don't have them clear. And so they think they could get those needs met in their trading. And that is why they will break their own rules. That need, it's human need to have those needs, but you cannot try to get it met in the market. The market is not there to meet your needs. It is there to only deliver if you follow the rules that you have tested and proven. So, but those needs are still there, even if the market doesn't want to meet them. So then that means that trader, as much as possible, needs to become a better steward of getting those needs met in every other department of their life. Because if they're going to spend all their time with the market not getting their needs met, then they have to, needs are akin to oxygen. If you aren't getting enough oxygen, how far can you go? If you aren't getting enough of your needs met in your day-to-day life, then you are going to likely be more tempted to try to get the market to meet them. And that's when the pain really begins for every trader.
I can see that. Amazing, Kim. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, to summarize the two key points that we touched on. A, you need to get your relationship with money in check, no matter where you come from. Two books were mentioned, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker and Money Harmony by Olivia Mellon. Once you have your relationship with money in check, trading will become much easier because you will move from the results-oriented mindset to the process-oriented mindset. And the outcome of an individual trade will not be a matter of life and death to you anymore, because you will understand what money really is. And B, you need to get your non-negotiable needs met outside of the market. Being loved, being seen, being respected, being safe, all of that has to be met outside of the market with your family, your hobbies, etc. Because the market will not fulfill any of those needs. And when you demand that those needs be met by the market, the end result will only be disastrous. The market will give you one thing, money, if you follow your rules, and that's it. Everything else is way beyond the scope of clicking buy and sell. So thank you very much for listening in. See you in the next one.